May is Mental Health Awareness Month, a time that aims to reduce the stigma surrounding mental illness. And all this week in the noon hour, we have been talking about ways to help your mental health and those around you. So today we're focusing on work-related stress that can significantly impact your mental health, potentially leading to symptoms like fatigue, job apathy, and difficulty concentrating. Joining us now is Lisa Birnbaum, a therapist, clinical co-founder, and co-host of Wired to Connect, Improving Relationships with Mental Health and Tech. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks very much for having me, Holly.
So how can work really impact our mental health?
Work plays a huge role for so many of us. We spend a lot of our time at work, and many of us derive a lot of meaning from our work in the best case scenario. And the other side of that is that workplace can definitely contribute to stress and exacerbate additional mental health concerns.
So, but nowadays it seems, all right, so many employees are asked to do more with less. But given the unemployment situation, so many people recently laid off and looking for work, so many people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs if they don't do what's asked of them, and they're afraid to push back, so afraid to stand up for their well-being. So what can people do to alleviate that stress without risking their jobs?
That is very true, and it's a common concern I hear about quite often. It's important to really consider, what am I dealing with here? What is my relationship like with my employer? Is this a conversation that I can have openly? Rarely are things like stress and burnout and overwhelm, and especially when these conditions become chronic, rarely are they just an individual concern. So, if there is a way for an individual to have an open conversation with their manager, with their employer, that tends to be a lot better than trying to handle this solely on your own. You mentioned doing more with less, and while that is true in many cases, it's important to be realistic about these things, and it's always helpful when that leadership and that modeling can come from the top. If we watch our bosses or our managers working, all hours of the night and not using any resources, tapping out, and really causing themselves chronic stress over time, that's going to send a message, obviously, to the individual employee that they, can't speak up for what they need and can't find ways of managing that stress as well. So it's really to try to model that.
And Lisa, a lot of people who work from home for the past few years, they're now being asked to go back to an office, sometimes full-time, and that could add a lot of stress. I mean, you have rush hour traffic. If you have children, finding alternate childcare, less time to take care of home life, family, things like that. So how can people go back to the office without stressing themselves out?
Yeah, that's another great question, and another topic that I see quite often. See if there's any way of finding ways that can work. Maybe it's not necessary to come into the office 5 days a week. Maybe there are opportunities to just come in part of the day. Maybe there is some sort of co-location where the collaboration that can happen happens when everybody's together. And then during other times when folks are, doing some heads down work or meeting with people all over the globe, maybe it's not necessary that we all go into one central office. So again, I think open communication is really key here, finding out, what can I control within my environment? When can I, find ways to make arrangements for childcare and find ways of getting into the office, and then when is a good opportunity for me to really ask for help and have an open conversation with the folks who make the decisions, and hopefully working together on that.
Let's talk about some of the common triggers when it comes to sort of, so to speak, losing your cool at work. How do we keep ourselves in check from from that healthy place?
Yeah, so there are lots of sort of individual skills and tools that are available to us. Many of us don't necessarily realize that we have an opportunity to pause, to do things that can help reset our nervous system. Maybe we can go for a walk. Maybe we can chat with a colleague or a friend. Maybe we can just do some deep breathing exercises, honestly. We're so kind of hustle and bustle and wired all the time that often it can be difficult to remember these things when we need it most. So again, really modeling that from the top and naming that this is completely acceptable, and we want you to talk about your stressors. We want you to take breaks when appropriate. We want you to pause before reacting so that you can respond clearly and effectively. And when everybody kind of works together on that, it tends to go much better.
And, some employees are afraid to ask for help, needing a mental health day or utilizing mental health resources with the health benefits because they're afraid of reprisal from an employer, perhaps. So how do you suggest employees ask for help without feeling like they're risking their jobs or their positions?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. Thankfully, a lot has changed in the recent past. This used to be much more stigmatized than it is now. Thankfully, many employers are waking up to the realities of this and to needing to support the workers that work so hard for them day in and day out. I think, again, it's important to really know your employer. I would never advise somebody to disclose something that they felt could lead to job loss or retaliation. That's the sad truth that, some people do still fear those things. However, if you're working at an environment where this open communication is accepted and hopefully modeled from the top, I strongly encourage openly talking about that and really naming the problem. There's no need to go into tremendous depth or to disclose, many details, but simply naming what the issue is, acknowledging that you're struggling and trying to identify what it is you need, and asking for that can go a long way.
Lisa Birnbaum, therapist, clinical co-founder, and the co-host of Wired to Connect. Thank you so much for your insight and expertise on an important topic.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.